So, what was this teacher up against? Let's step inside that classroom for a minute and really understand the challenge that sparked this whole journey.
Okay, just look at the setup here. We're talking about first graders in rural Indonesia. These kids had little to absolutely zero exposure to English. Can you imagine trying to explain verb tenses to a 6-year-old who has never even heard the word hello? Yeah, the traditional methods, they were pretty much guaranteed to fail. This is where you have to start thinking differently, right? About that natural, innate ability to learn that's already inside the kids themselves.
So, faced with this massive challenge, the teacher didn't just try harder with the old methods. No, they found a whole new way to look at the problem, a new perspective that would totally change their approach to teaching.
So, here's the first huge piece of the puzzle: comprehensible input. This is the big idea. It basically means the teacher's main job wasn't to be a grammar cop, but to be a provider of meaning. The goal was just to get messages across that the kids could basically understand, using pictures, gestures, simple words, whatever it took. It's all about getting the gist of the story, not knowing every single word. And this right here, this explains why comprehensible input is so important. Krashen makes this really clear distinction between acquiring a language and learning one. I mean, think about it. You didn't learn your first language by memorizing grammar charts in your crib, right? You just absorbed it. You picked it up. That's acquisition, and it's totally natural. Learning, on the other hand, is that formal classroom thing where you're memorizing rules. The teacher's goal here was to create a space for real acquisition to happen. Now listen up, because this might be the most important part of this whole thing: the affective filter. Picture it like an invisible emotional wall. When a student is stressed out, anxious, or just plain scared of making a mistake, that wall goes way up. And it doesn't matter how great your teaching is, nothing's getting through. But when a student feels safe, when they're confident, when they're actually having fun, that wall comes right down, and their brain is just wide open to soak up that new language.
All right, so the theory is pretty clear. Give them messages they can understand and make them feel safe and happy. But what did that actually look like day to day in the classroom? Let's find out.
Well, first, let's talk about what got thrown out the window. Gone. No more boring grammar drills, no confusing charts explaining the past tense. The teacher deliberately got rid of all the stuff we usually think of when we picture a language class, because all that stuff does is raise that affective filter and focus on learning instead of what we really want, which is acquisition. And here's what they did instead. This was the secret sauce for delivering all that amazing comprehensible input. It wasn't about worksheets. It was about bringing the language to life. We're talking songs, stories, games. All of a sudden, English wasn't a subject you study. It was just the way you had fun and communicated. This is how you build an environment where kids can just naturally absorb a language.
And you know, underneath all of those fun activities, there was one single driving goal. Every song, every story, every game, it was all designed to do one thing above all else: lower that affective filter. The number one priority was making the kids feel happy, confident, and safe enough to actually let the language in. The vibe of the classroom was everything. So how do you actually build that kind of safe space? Well, here it is, broken down. It's about creating joy. It's about celebrating the effort, not perfection. When a kid tried to say something and messed up, they weren't corrected. They were encouraged. Mistakes weren't seen as failures. They were seen as proof that learning was happening.
So, when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway from this teacher's amazing experience in that little rural classroom? It really all boils down to this, doesn't it? This is the heart of the story. Especially for beginners, the environment is everything. Creating a space where someone's brain can just subconsciously absorb a language without fear, without pressure, is so much more powerful than trying to drill a bunch of rules into their head. It's a huge shift in thinking, from teaching a subject to nurturing a natural human talent. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. This whole idea of acquisition over learning is obviously huge for language, but where else does it apply? What about learning an instrument, or getting good at a sport, or even learning a new skill at work? Where in your own life could you benefit from creating a fun, low-stakes environment to just acquire an understanding instead of formally trying to learn it?